From times of ancient until this very moment, humans have pondered upon a question that strikes fear into many. A question that has no definite answer, and by the time a definite answer is known, it will already be too late. When will the world end? Potential answers and theories surrounding Doomsday can be found in numerous sources. Many of the major religions, for example, have their own predictions on the end times. In Christianity, the Bible mentions Armageddon as the world's end, the last battle between good and evil, which would happen in the city of Jerusalem. In Judaism, while the term Armageddon is not explicitly mentioned, similar events are referenced, such as the Day of the Lord. In Hinduism, the god Vishnu is thought to return in the figure of Kalki in the last cycle of time and destroy forces of evil. In Buddhism, the ultimate fate of the world is believed to be destruction and ruin of the earth through the appearance of 7 suns in the sky. In Sunni Islam, it is believed that Muhammad will be resurrected and the sinful dead will be punished. Even in religions as old as these, Doomsday was a topic of heavy interest. But if we wanted to look at more recent examples of Doomsday dates, we could point to December 21st, 2012. The Mayan civilization and the Mayan calendar were what made this an infamous case of Doomsday misprediction. This idea that the world's end would have been almost 6 years ago started with the misconception of the Mayan calendar. It was claimed that the last days on the calendar would take place in December, and eventually this was linked to the story of the planet Nibiru, a planet that was supposed to bring upon a catastrophe in May of 2003. No worldwide disasters happened then, of course, so the date was later moved to December of 2012 in correlation with the supposed end of the Mayan calendar. The problem with this theory was that the Mayan calendar did not actually end on December of 2012. It merely began a new cycle, just as our calendar ends and starts counting again in January. Even NASA published an article in 2012 stating that tales of the planet Nibiru were only internet hoaxes and that there is no factual basis for these claims. While these kinds of prophecies may not be a reliable source of answers, we can always look to what some professionals and scientists have to say about the topic. One of the largest topics of interest within scientists discussing our end is climate change. According to Daniel Rothman, a geophysics professor at MIT, in carbon cycles there exist thresholds of catastrophe that, if exceeded, will lead to an unstable environment, followed by mass extinction. He states that our extinction will depend on the amount of carbon added to the oceans. He calculates that a critical amount of carbon would be around 310 gigatons, and estimates that we will reach that mark by 2100. Rothman doesn't think the end will take place on 2100, but rather the carbon cycle would no longer be stable and would behave in unpredictable ways, and that in the geological past, this type of behavior is associated with mass extinction. A reputable source of information on climate change and global warming is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC for short. They claim there will be a rise in temperature of 2.5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit over the next century. The impact and extent of the effect will depend on the region and its environment. A few of the future effects of global warming include change in precipitation, an increase in droughts, stronger and more intense hurricanes, an ice-free Arctic, and a rise of 1 to 4 feet in the sea level by 2100. Of course, all predictions about our end in climate change are made assuming nothing else wipes us out in the next century or two. We have come very close to catastrophe through heated matters between world leaders and close calls with nuclear forces. This level of risk is measured by the Doomsday Clock. The Doomsday Clock is a clock with the hour handle at 12 and the minute handle moving from 17 minutes until midnight to 2 minutes till throughout the years. It is a symbol of how far we are from the destruction of humanity, with midnight representing impending doom. The clock was first designed in 1947 by artist Marta Langsdorff as a reminder that we don't have much time left to get atomic weapons under control, as nuclear tension between the United States and the Soviet Union was at a high point in those years. Since then, the clock's minute handle has been adjusted according to recent events like the development and testing of nuclear weapons, and since 2007, climate change. The minute handle was at its lowest in 1991 with the end of the Cold War. The United States and Russia had stepped down on their nuclear arsenal, and treaties were signed to reduce the number of nuclear weapons. 2 different years tie for the highest mark the minute handle has crossed, 1953 and 2018. The clock handle was moved to 2 minutes until midnight in 1953 when the US continued the creation of the hydrogen bomb and the Soviets tested one of their own. In 2018, the supposed reason for the handle's position on the clock is failure of world leaders to address the largest threats to humanity's future. The handle's position has been on a constant decline since 2010 and got particularly bad in 2015 due to unchecked climate change, global nuclear weapon modernizations, and outsized nuclear weapons arsenals. It's important to note that the handle's position is typically adjusted on the January of each year, and since January 2018, good events have occurred, such as the 2018 North Korea-United States Summit. The Doomsday Clock, however, is not a forecasting tool as stated in their FAQ. It's a study of current events and possible outcomes of actions taken by important figures. While it's near impossible to foretell extinction with 100% accuracy, we can use mathematics to give rough estimates and predict the time of doom. The Doomsday argument is one of the most popular and controversial mathematic theories on human extinction. Suppose that after Doomsday, aliens will come down to Earth and resurrect every person who has ever lived. Then they line us up and number us from 1 to n being the total number of humans. They sort us into 3 groups, the first 5%, the middle 90%, and the last 5%. Now imagine an alien comes up to you and asks, which group are you in? Since you don't know how many people lived after you, the most reasonable assumption would be that you're in the middle group. After all, if every person was questioned and they gave the same answer, 90% of them would be correct. Therefore, we should always assume we're in the middle of the total human population. Given that around 110 billion people have been born so far, if we assume we've been born somewhere in the very middle, the total human population n will be around 220 billion. If we take the current birth rate per year and apply, we have about 800 years until doom according to the Doomsday argument. To help understand the argument better, here's an analogy. Say you sign up for a lottery where each ticket is assigned a number, and you know nothing else about the lottery. It could be a smaller, more local lottery with 100 participants, or some giant lottery with 100,000 participants. You are then presented with your ticket and it is ticket number 3. Knowing your ticket number, is it more likely that this is the local lottery or the giant lottery? It's more probable that you entered the local lottery, as if you had entered the giant lottery, your ticket number would probably be 5 digits. This is essentially the Doomsday argument, except you are the ticket and you're assigned your birth number. If you are the 100 billionth person born, is it more likely when the aliens line us up that you're chosen out of 200 billion people or 2 trillion? Here's one final example of the argument by Michael Stevens himself.
Hey, Vsauce! Michael here. Imagine a giant urn that contains either 10 balls numbered 1 to 10 or 1,000,000 balls numbered 1 to 1,000,000. Now you don't know which is the case, but you are allowed to pull out one ball. You go ahead and do that, and it is ball number 4. That's pretty strong evidence in favor of the 10-ball condition, because drawing a 4 from a set of 1 through 10 is a 1 in 10 chance, but drawing 4 from 1,000,000 different numbers is a 1 in 1,000,000 chance. By analogy, you are also a numbered ball. You are a human who knows approximately what your birth number is. It's probably somewhere around 100 billion. That's how many other humans were most likely born before you were. Importantly, you didn't get to decide which birth number you would have. So, just like the number 4 ball, you are a random sample from the set of all humans who will ever live. The Doomsday argument points out that from 200 billion people, there's a 50% chance that a randomly chosen person, like you, would be born in the first 100 billion. Whereas if there will be 10 trillion humans, there's only a 1% chance that any given human, say you, would happen to be born within the first 100 billion. Either you are special and lucky.
But as I mentioned, the Doomsday argument is very controversial. Many have pointed out flaws with the argument, such as how it takes almost no outside factors into consideration. Birth rates can easily change, and technology will advance to the point where we can counteract extinction events, have higher lifespans, colonize different planets, and maybe even become immortal. We will probably never know when the world ends until it does. It could end in a few years, decades, centuries. It could end right now. But it could also end never. Doomsday is an event of the future, and what matters in the present is that we work and help each other overcome the supposed fate and to build a future that never ends. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you another day.